Meeting's called to order. First item, have we had a chance to review the minutes of the previous meeting?
Move to approve.
We have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second.
So we have a motion. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes for approval. All right, old business. EZ2 data business report.
We just want to keep updates. At least we received two easy or checks. So the EZ2 is the property tax deduction that some businesses that were in the former zone are still set to receive. And we took two checks. One was for 8.8 grand, the other was 1.2, and then it was $10,116 total. Last year we received $19,857 from the same two companies, and we're gonna just do some more due diligence and make sure we have a thorough understanding of that incentive as it exists, as there still are. There's more than just those two businesses that are eligible, and just make sure we have a thorough understanding of the ins and outs. So we don't do much with it. It's more the state association and the assessment. Assessor. But I have asked staff to just help us kind of go through, communicate with the state association and the assessor's office. So we know who still has active ones, where they're at, how many years, and whether or not we can start to do some just projections off the last couple of years. They're not eligible to do that anymore because we didn't agree with some. So. But if they did initiate the abatement while the zone was still active, they would have it.
Didn't know that.
So there's just more into the so to your point, Jimmy, there's just more of those ins and outs that we need to just better understanding of.
Thank you. All right. Any questions? If not, moving on to the Tolson Center.
So Jim and Arvis, I was gonna give you the floor, but I did do a quick fact sheet of all the information that we could find on this, since this has been a minute.
We already confirmed this, right?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I believe so. I think we,
This was the matching. not
yeah, the
mural.
matching, yeah, up to, I think 25,000 is what we talked about.
Yeah, you earmarked it.
Oh, so there was your map, anyway,
Yep.
I'll let you start the conversation.
Okay, so this isn't the mural.
The mural didn't happen. So
Okay.
this was last year, about this time, artists came to the board and said there was a matching grant that was available because they approached many nonprofits in the area. They approached many nonprofits. This is for phase 2 of the construction, so this is the back fields,
Okay.
not the mural.
Oh, that's right.
And so it's a matching, and so we gave up to 2,500, Lily would match dollar for dollar.
Okay.
But we had to earmark it for this year because it was the pledges they were collecting last year, so that way Lily would know how much they had to then match with it. And that's why we voted on it last year, so that she could put it in her packet for Lily to get it this year.
And was that, did you say 2,500 or 25,000?
It was up to 25,000.
Okay,
And so we voted for up to 25,000 based on that, because that was the max per, like, she could only ask every organization for 25,000.
in 24, so that was somewhere in 24.
That was almost. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I was pregnant then and everything. It was last summer.
But
That I
time
can tell you.
frames it if we were pregnant,
What?
time frames it if we were pregnant.
Yep. So it's like, don't ask me real exact ones. I just remember I was super pregnant. So we're talking probably either from now to September.
Okay, so then the ask is, I mean, if we've already allocated it,
We allocated it.
so then we need to reallocate it now, or we just write the check?
We write the check, yeah, and I think the
Okay.
vote was because it was already voted that we were gonna do it. The
Okay.
vote is just for the check to be cashed, or the check to be written.
Okay.
Yeah. I agree.
That's what it was.
And that's what specifically he was interested in, it wasn't so much the mural. conversation? 'Cause I
No.
put together a package.
It's-
It's totally fine.
So when she originally approached the board, because we've given the first one was not as significant, we gave money in, the first time, and it was the proposal of the mural, but they lost some kind, and Mike, you can help me on this, because they lost some kind of funding, I don't remember if they didn't get what, everything they were going to get ready, or there was something that happened, and so that's why that money pivoted. Do you remember that?
I remember that we were talking about, we were talking about moving the mural, then it turned out that was gonna be too tedious, and then they were talking about, putting up pictures of Mr. Love's,
Yeah, but then that didn't happen.
then that didn't happen, then the phase two request came in.
So looking at this, looking at the discussion around the mural from the previous discussions, the EUEA supported it when it was gonna be a recreation of the mural in some original form based on graphics that they presented.
Mhm.
I think in their request, it shifted to a different mural in the style of Kelby. It wasn't a recreation of the mural. And I think there was the consensus around the organization that if it wasn't gonna be the actual mural, then they didn't want to support it. And so maybe then the pivot was to help fund the fields with up to 25,000 in match
We've given them money before though.
or something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, a
That-
kids art program.
It was,
Yeah.
okay, maybe that was like, this was the presentation that we got,
I think it
that
was
we gave money to.
Kids art.
I think you're right, Mike.
Okay.
Okay,
So that 25,000, sorry, just for next steps, the 25,000 match will be somewhere in the summer 24?
Now, so when
Minutes?
we,
I mean,
in the minutes?
if I go back and just wanna read out.
I would do May, June, July,
Okay, of 24.
possibly, I wasn't here in August, I'm pretty sure I missed that
I
meeting.
pretty much, I saved all of these.
Okay, and I can
So,
check our records.
Yeah,
I would like, I
I'd
would
write
look at
down
May,
shitty
June,
scratches on it, but I remember us doing the up to $25,000 match, I remember that.
okay, so if we need a new motion, I'll make a motion that we go ahead and authorize the check to be cut to Thompson to support the development of the fields.
I'll second that.
So we're talking about half of this, 44,820, is that what we're talking about?
No, it sounds like there was a $25,000 match that we committed to and voted to approve besides the mural project. So I put together a fact sheet for the mural project thinking that might be what we're looking at, but it sounds like it's the field.
Do we know how much the check is gonna be?
25,000.
25,000
That they spent?
for the field? Oh, yeah,
At least that.
there you no doubt on that.
So we did just find it in the minutes, June 17, 24. Kristen, you made a motion to pledge 25 grand, and then August 2nd, and it was.
So we'll
That was
reconfirm.
June?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
It wasn't super
Way to
far.
go, Drew. Nice.
Yeah.
So we have a first and a second on the motion. Any other questions? Hearing those, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passes.
All right, I'm gonna quick swap the new business. Oh, sorry, you should leave it.
You're gonna swap it, you have to make a motion
No,
to
you're
amend the agenda. Do you wanna swap it? You gotta make a motion to amend the agenda. Fine, I can make it for you, just gotta tell me if you wanna switch.
No, it won't take very long, that's fine, we should. Okay, so, I have some materials for us. We have indeed been busy on the receivership conversation, looking into details and preparing us and doing the due diligence of what it would take us to be, in line for an RFQ or a potential receivership. So I prepared the following documents. If you wouldn't mind, please taking one and passing it around. I'd also ask you to take these and pass them around. Or I guess I could have passed, maybe could have left where you sit, but. And I will talk you through these docs. Sorry about the paper today, folks, but it will be useful, I promise. Oh, you got it, those, great. Anybody need RFQ? So the three things I passed out were an overview of what's been happening, what's gonna happen next, then a scorecard, and then the RFQ. Does everyone have access to those three documents?
So
We're just trying to figure out which one to go off first there, big guy.
I have four, actually. that I passed out.
I got four.
Oh, yes, and the and the simplified SOPs. You're right. Sorry about that. Okay, so, let's just zooming out and framing a little bit. We came away from that last meeting really being, still being interested in the receivership process. One of the things that we took on as a staff, is trying to understand and wrap our minds around what it would take to translate our SOPs to the EUA. What do we need to put what information and steps do we need to put in front of you to activate an EUA for us to get ready for that RFQ or to get ready for that RFP? So, I just had this very simple highlighted document. So if you'd refer to EUA Receivership Simplified, 1995. But this is a very simple version of receivership SOPs. There are a million. I could make this a 3-4 page doc, but boiling it down, there are two major areas that that could use, and I'll explain this more, but that we could use assistance, that we're going to need assistance on. One is the independent legal party to draft the agreements between the contract development partner and EUVA, and then handle legal details. And that's because as of now, econ development is continuing just as usual. We're supporting where appropriate. We're trying to avoid conflicts of interest. That being said, the legal department, now that we're moved out of the city context, we're not going to be able to utilize the legal department. Along with that, if we would go forward, we're not the contractors. We're not going to be the ones doing the work. So establishing the subcontractor ahead of any of the process, finding those people and going to the work of figuring out who are qualified people that we want to work with before the RFQ gets put out, would be a proposed step. Now, I'm going to reference this directly back to receivership point system and the RFQ. Now, this RFQ, these are public documents. You can go to Board of Works and say, hey, I want that RFQ, I want the scorecard and so forth. And we're at the point where I think rounding out everyone's understanding and getting into specifics doesn't harm the conversation. But returning to these details. So in obtaining the legal party, we can address issues that come up throughout the scorecard. Perhaps that really they're covered, and they're also someone that can drop agreements and so forth. So that's what's really intended for the legal. On the building side, that first section, hopefully addressing.
Which one are we looking at?
Sorry.
Receivership.
Receivership
We're jumping back.
points. Yep.
Okay, no, you're good. Just to make sure I'm looking at the
No,
right thing.
that's great. Give me a couple. It's awesome. Receivership point system. That first category, quality of the project plan, that's intended to be qualified by the subcontractors. Technical competence, again, subcontracting team. Financial capability is a question mark or exclamation point for right now. I think that can be handled by staff and internally, but it was a question coming off a recent receivership of exactly how we're doing that. So we need to decide, we have some work to do as far as understanding the exact financial documents and what the expectations are.
So what's the concern with the financial capacity? That we don't have enough money or we don't know how to prove it? Like, what is the concern with the financial capacity? Because we have quite a bit of cash on hand.
Money in the bank is the best way to show. We have had, in the past, we've had like throw us a balance sheet and be like, hey, I've got all these properties. Part of what we need to do candidly over the next couple of weeks is like figure out, is that good enough? Is a balance sheet, if you just hand a balance sheet over, or do you need a bank saying, hey, these guys have $300,000?
See, I don't mean to interrupt, but I think what he's talking about is not our financial It's their financial, who's gonna do the work for us?
Oh.
Do they have the financial wherewithal? Do they have money in the bank? Do they have, as opposed to whether, how much money we have in the bank?
No.
I guess I'm confused.
They're gonna be specifically interested in the money that EUVA has in the bank.
Why
When we
can't
would
we
start.
just present how much money we have?
It's one of them,
I'm
yes,
like, cause we can't just,
because it's the bank, yeah, as opposed to a balance sheet or a profit and loss
okay, I was like,
statement
we
or
can't
something.
just, our things are public, we can't just turn in how much money we have.
Yeah, I think it could be pretty easy, and that's part of the reason I didn't have an accountant that
Okay,
required help.
okay.
And,
And who wants that information? Who's
so we have it on the scorecard right now.
So the scorecard would be, is the scorecard where we're, who's the scorecard?
So, okay, so, yeah, so the first two receivership are projects that we just recently completed.
Yeah.
The EUEA Economic Development staff created the RFQ that was scored by the scoring committee in order to select a recommended back to the Board of Works, and the Board of Works goes to the court and asks the court to do it. So what we decided, what we thought would be helpful is understanding that the EUEA is interested in becoming a potential bidder in the RFQ process to become a receiver and do that. We wanted to walk through the process of what does it take for the EUEA to create a successful response proposal to the RFQ, so that everybody at the board is understanding of what the RFQ asks for, what we need to be able to prepare, and what kind of partnerships we need to create in order to be able to create and submit a response to the RFQ. And that's really what the purpose of today is. And that's what the purpose of this exercise is really about, right? So we've taken some steps internally with the city to understand the process and to remove EUEA from the scoring team and to remove any potential conflicts, because we heard from the legal department, if economic development and legal and the city and EUEA are all part of this RFQ piece, and then EUEA wants to submit as a potential participant in the RFQ, there are conflict of interest perceptions we need to be aware of. So we've taken steps on our end to remove those from the city process. The economic development team will still work with Board of Works and legal department and building department and some internal city scoring committee that we're working to create in order to do that, so that we can remove EUEA from the process, so that EUEA can then pursue partnerships to create an actual response back to the next time or a future opportunity that fits right for what the board wants to go after and do. And so I think Josh isn't saying there is a concern. These are the items that were part of the RFQ scoring system previously. And so we would anticipate that these would be very similar to the RFQ scoring system components moving forward. And so this is just so everybody has that. You're right, a perfectly appropriate response to the financial capacity piece would be, yes, we have this much money in our account. Yes, it's liquid. We can write a check out of it tomorrow and we can pay to do it. Now, if we say the building's going to cost under this much money, we have to have some level of certainty that says the project can be delivered for $300,000. If it doesn't, then do we have the capacity to go above the $300,000 to do that? And would we? That's how we would be responding compared to other potential bidders, right?
Yeah, so this is pretty much simplified for us to understand what's currently being developed or put in place, so.
And scoring is the internal team at the city to present to Board of Works.
And it will be, yes.
Got it, okay,
Correct.
got it. So that's who's looking at this.
That would be who's scoring.
Yeah.
Correct.
Got it.
Whereas before, Therese was part of the scoring committee, I was part of the scoring committee, Tim was part of the scoring committee. So, these should look familiar to you and how we, assigned points and did those things previously. But now we want to remove EUVA from that process so that we can actually be a bidder.
Thank you. That's, no, okay.
So now, I think I'd like to look, does anyone have any questions so far? Receivership simplified, kind of two main objectives, receivership point system, and the RFQ, which we're not gonna go into detail today, but I thought this was probably a good time that we started having it in our hands, so we could start looking at it. Is there any other questions beyond Mike's excellent
So
summary?
the idea of needing a legal person is the person who helps us put the packet together. So that way it's outside of city legal, right?
Yeah.
To then help submit to, I have to make sure I'm understanding that correctly, to submit to. And then if we are chosen, that attorney is the one who helps negotiate by whoever we subcontract that out to somebody else to do. Or if we do it, they handle those legal questions on behalf of EVA.
I think that it would be challenging for city staff to coordinate the EUEA's response packet, right?
Yeah.
So it would likely need to be a board-led process to create and coordinate that. If I think about what the two biggest issues are moving through the receivership process, that the EUEA needs a relationship. One, you need a contractor who's going to be able to say, I've read the order. I know what needs to be done. I've seen the pictures. Here's the scope of work, create all of that. Here's the cost. Can you do it? Who's going to manage the project from a construction side? Here are my other projects I've worked on and managed so that because that's a big part of it. It's not so much the proposal as how qualified are you to get the job done, get it done in your time frame, and have it look good at the end, right? I mean, that's the city's ultimate goal. And you have to be able to show your experience being able to complete the project from other work that you've done. I think that's the biggest core relationship piece. I think the other piece of that, and in my mind, the biggest piece for the legal is, okay, once we've completed it, once the project's done, and we get to the space where we need somebody to go to the court and say, we've now completed our work. Now we would like to foreclose on lien so that we can own the property, right? Or have the attorney on the front end draft the legal agreement between the EUEA and the contractor that says, okay, at the end of this, you finish this, you have the right, we're the receiver, you have our right to foreclose on it yourself. And then you take it so that EUEA doesn't have to do that, right? Whatever that is on the front end, that's what you'll need a little bit of legal advice for. One of those two pieces. You either have to create the agreement with the developer, contractor, who you want to own it at the end as the one option, or if EUEA wants to foreclose and own it and try to sell it, then you need an attorney to kind of help you go through that space. That make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so those are the two things that I think Josh is trying to outline is that EUEA needs to probably have, and we can facilitate some of that, but probably needs to have an agreement with an attorney on which one of those pieces, and probably needs to have some kind of a start identifying potential contractor partners that you might want to look through to be able to work through on some of these projects.
Got it.
If this is the desired goal, then this is the direction we should start moving towards in order to be ready for the next time an opportunity comes up.
And I think if you maybe even let's say you talk to a Warwick and Boyne about the concept of what's going on. I mean, they are familiar with this type of process and could probably either come to a meeting or provide you some background on the way that it might work.
I think you're absolutely right.
And just tell us.
The organization already has a relationship with work and we're on organizational pieces. We could certainly invite the right attorney in from the work team and have those conversations.
Agreed. Yeah. So that segues, thank you, everyone. That segues pretty well into the overview. Do we have an overview document? Everyone can see an overview double-sided document. Let's give this a sec. Okay, so just like we were just talking about, I thought we would just take a moment to say what we've been doing as a city department, and then what needs to happen next, or what potential next steps. We can discuss what form they take. So we've been working with city legal team to clarify roles and legal structure. As Mike mentioned, one of the concerns was the potential conflict of interest or conflict of interest from if EUBA board members or reviewers in an application. So we're working on addressing that. in May, Therese has to be, replaced on, sorry, Therese, on the board. But that's what we started with. We're checking on that. The city process development. So within the city departments, we're currently looking how we can align and know which properties are in the pipeline. And I could see that being really useful for this group because we have to come back, decide if we're interested, go to the contractor, go to the lawyer. So Mike and I have had some discussions around the possibility of us being cognizant, more cognizant, and integrated into the pipeline of properties. Now, that being said, we're still in discussion phase. So that's just something we've been discussing, and we'll let you know once we have things ironed out. Mike, is that a fair summary, or would you like to add anything to that regarding our conversation?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, we've had really good conversations with the legal department to understand the back half of the process. Once the property actually goes through the OTA, it goes to legal, to go to the court, to ask the Board of Works to have the right to appoint the receiver. We understand from there on. I think the next meeting Josh and I are having is with Amy and Tim to understand which properties have already been declared vacant and abandoned. What's the timeline on those? There's a 2-year window that they have to be before they can go to the OTA piece for going to be eligible for receiver. So we want to understand what that pipeline looks like. What Kevin told Josh and I the other day is that if there are some buildings that are in the city that maybe aren't already in the process somehow, we can bring that up to code. Code can elevate those in some ways. We need to understand that part a little bit better. I think our intent right now is just to try to understand what's the universe of buildings. We know there's a couple of them that might be coming soon, but one of them's caught up in the tax sale process, and once it goes to tax sale, it's really not a good receivership. It's not a good candidate for receivership because the owner can come and redeem the taxes at any point and usurp any of the liens or whatever that comes with the receivership process. So they won't appoint a receiver on something that's in tax sale. So anyway, all of that is a lot of internal discussions. I think Josh was right. I think we'll have a better idea of what the potential list is, hopefully coming soon. But that's why it's important that the VUEA wants to start getting ready. You look at some of these other actions so that when the next one does come up, or when we know and have a better idea of how many there would be, that we're already kind of thinking. And who will. Any questions on?
I just listed a tax, Mike mentioned this, but we're gonna try and communicate with the county to see who's gonna be on tax sale, because if it goes to tax sale, like Mike said, frozen for a year, they have a year to, the owner has a year to pay off their taxes and keep the property. As of now, that is hard and fast, no touching it for receivership rule for Elkhart. So. Okay, so here's what I would propose for what we would propose for next steps, and happy to discuss these things. It's just one way to play it, but this would be our suggestion. So I would like to propose, we'd like to propose forming a work group, and at least 3 folks from the group. And if everyone wants to be involved, like see that being a scenario as well, that would hurt the concept. And their role, this work group's role, is coordinating with economic development to first figure out what we're gonna say to our subcontractors. Like, we need like a 3-page or 1-page minimum. Here's what we're gonna try and do. EUA was this. We're trying to attempt a receivership. We need legal assistance or subcontracting assistance in this fashion. So I would see economic development developing a summary document that we can share with those subcontractor partners so we can be more clear. So that group would help us review that. Then they would be responsible for reviewing qualifications and costs from legal and contractor proposals, which, hold that thought, I'll explain more in the next section. And then my intention would be that work group makes a recommendation to the board. Now, the alternative is standing committees, but standing committees can be challenging to keep people engaged, and this hasn't been a group that has standing committees in the past, so open to that option. I'm thinking of this as more of a temporary work group where we get some answers, we figure it out, and then we're back in a place to convene and move forward following. So we'll definitely answer questions, but I just want to finish these last 2 points. Economic development, our team, as part of this, would prepare the summary document for the prospective subcontractors, make it as clear as we can, work on that, and share it with the work group. We would be the ones to identify with the subgroup, with the work group's help would be lovely, and anyone that can help, but we will source 3 to 4 qualified legal firms and try and find 3 to 4 contractors that would fit with the group. Again, would love that to be a group process if we have group input. And then present options and cost estimates to the work group. I would say in general, you can think of economic development specialists as being involved in many steps. That being said, we have to keep track of this conflict of interest issue. Then upon recommendation, the board considers doing a receivership. So those would be kind of the 2 sides of the coin, what we're doing and what the board work group's doing. That's kind of the idea. Open to
The only question I have, being in construction for almost 30 years, I just want to, so I understand it is, we're gonna try to build a worksheet for dealing with subcontractors, but we really don't know what we're gonna need to fix on whatever the dilapidated property is.
Right, let me clarify. So the worksheet or the summary document that I mentioned would be, think of it as like an introductory visit with a potential subcontractor. So let's just say Krugel and Law, what's a good law firm? Yeah, so we go to Work and Boyne. That summary document that I'm thinking of is a write-up of like, okay, receivership, okay, here's what EUPA was, here's what we are. So I'm really thinking of that as a table setting kind of summary document, so instead of like you said, we won't know. A little bit.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify so I understood, because to me, I'm thinking hammers 2x4s.
Like a
Yeah,
5 slide.
Yeah, we gotta sit there and fix the foundation, so you may go to a contractor over here that specializes in concrete. Then you gotta go to a subcontractor over here for reinforcement, structural integrity issues that need to be taken care of. That may be 2 different subcontractors.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think what I heard Josh say was the initial document is really just help talk to those contractors about what the receivership process is, what we would anticipate their role being, what we'd anticipate our role being as we go through that non-building or site specific, right? Once we pick one, based on whatever site, then we say, okay, now here's what, then we get into what you said, which is, here's what the work needs to be done, how do you scope that? On the front end, it's just to kind of help them understand who we are, what we're trying to accomplish, and what receivership's all about.
I would think they just want us to sign a contract and fix the place, but pay the bill, but okay. It's great. It really is. I just wanted to clarify. That's all.
I just have some financial considerations
Do
on
you
the,
want the group?
oh, sorry.
Like, before we just move on, I was like,
Yeah.
do you want group or are you not ready for it? Or are you having us think about it today? What do you think?
I
How
would,
to help you?
yeah, I would love to have, if we would have volunteers for the work group, I do think this is something that we could work on May into June. We've got some Q3 big stuff coming up. And honestly, I just thought 3 was a nice minimum. Does anybody, I know something like this hasn't been asked for a while, but is there anybody that would be interested in helping on a work group like that?
Yeah, I would be.
I'm happy to.
Sure, I will.
Thank you. Are we content with 3? I think that's great.
That's what I heard.
And I'm even happy to help draft a document too. I think that's totally fine. If that's helpful at all.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I don't think we need to go far in the weeds on this. I just want to start us thinking about the financial questions. I don't want to go, like I said, this is just primer, but are EUA subcontractors in the proposal? If so, our proposal gets more expensive because our subcontractor costs the proposal, we have a legal cost or something, it raises our price. Do we want to set fees for subcontractors? If so, and the legal, obviously, you're not gonna set a fee for a legal company, but do you want to set a fee for a subcontractor to work with us? It opens the question of why that subcontractor, the building subcontractors want to work with us at all. However, in the scenario that there's no fees and we're just getting paid back, we're not making money on that. We're being made whole at the end of the process. Once we've renovated that building. Now, one option is taking that property, putting it for sale, like we've talked about, taking it all the way to finished sale. But for this pilot, it feels really, it might be an overreach, and it puts a lot of pressure. It'll put a lot of pressure on all of us. So this is a thought process is, how do we get that to a renovated property? So these are just some financial questions to start musing over. We're thinking about these as a staff. And they have various connotations on the proposals, but I don't think it's something we have to really hash into here. But if any of you have comments or questions, I think certainly.
I go back to so I'm trying to figure out the actual role of the subcontractor here. So we're soliciting to have scope of work performed on this property in receivership. So we're soliciting and trying to get the lowest bid possible, but still get the job done. So trying to charge them a fee, I think that would be whatever we try to incorporate the sale, whether we're making it whole or we're making a profit. The main idea behind it is to get the property fixed up to where it's up to par for the community. If we make money off of it, great. If we don't, we still succeeded. So as far as the subcontractor role, so I guess it kind of segues over where this may sound like a very stupid question, but are we sitting there trying to build a partnership with a subcontractor that they're going to do this for a certain amount of a percentage of the sale that will still cover their costs and have a profit? So we don't have no money coming out of our coffers to cover it. That's what I'm trying to figure out would that be the aspect of charging them a fee? Maybe I'm trying to play catch up here, but I'm just trying to ask a question.
I think your comments about charging a fee are absolutely on point. It would be cumbersome, if not too complicated to do. The only reason I mention it is we're a group without a revenue stream, and we'd like to be a group with a revenue stream. And so I personally agree with you that fees and such would be complicated, although I will pick up on one thing you said. No, that's not right. We could quietly do this. I was thinking RFQ, RFP, we could issue it, but I don't think we're not ready to require the city, so.
My response to that, and again, I think it's gonna, when we get to the property, I think the individual property is gonna tell us a whole lot about what we're gonna do. I think if the intent is that we have a partnership with a contractor, that, basically our whole role is that we serve as the receiver and our contract is with them to do the work, and then we let them foreclose and get the property. I think it's very simple for us to just add a 5% fee onto it and just collect some money off of it. I think we're still in the competitive bidding process, when we go through the bid. We don't have to have legal costs or things in, because they're gonna go take that and do that as part of their, the contract. If it's a space where we want to own the building at the end, I don't think we have to worry about it. I think we don't add our fee. Our fee is whatever we sell it for. So I think it depends on which option we choose and how obviously the property tell us how we get there.
So are we looking as the terminology, the subcontractor is the developer? Is that what I'm missing? Because in my world, In construction, a subcontractor is a sub to a prime.
Well, so I think I'm looking at that, it has to be the developer, right?
Okay.
I think he's framing it as a subcontractor. We're not a prime, we don't have construction, unless it's gonna be you, unless you're gonna be the general,
no.
and you're gonna manage it.
It's not
We don't,
hearing.
you know,
I'm just trying to.
we don't have
I'm
that,
sorry.
we don't have that capacity.
If the terminology
Right.
is
So-
developer, then everything clicks.
So our
with me now.
relationship with the
That's what we're
developer
looking at.
will manage all of the work, all of the construction work, right?
I had developer in my initial draft, I went out for building subcontractor.
It's all
but
good.
absolutely,
I'm just looking for clarification, you know,
Yeah.
so.
No,
You're
that's
right,
right.
that's
Okay.
very true.
Okay, that is what I have for receivership. I did include the RFQ and the receivership point system. Please peruse it as you have time, and call me questions, email, happy to talk through any of that. Drew, is there anything I'm missing that we worked on here last 2 weeks that you want to clarify?
No, I mean, I think we covered everything.
A real quick question, Josh, is we didn't go over this document. What is this document?
That's the one you did.
Okay, gotcha. This is the one.
Yeah, I thought it would just be helpful as like framing and matching it to the receivership point system. I wasn't really intending to go through it unless you really want me to go through it.
We'll read it.
It matches the solution.
Okay, yeah.
Consistent with what you did.
That gives you an idea.
Okay, so I think the staff, I don't have in mind a schedule for the work group admittedly, but we can probably coordinate that via emails pretty easily. And so if everyone's comfortable with it, it sounds like it. I don't think there's no formal board action that was taken in creating an ad hoc working group. Maybe if we were establishing a committee, but we're not. So I'll be in contact with the three. Thank you very much, and our intention will take us through these steps, and I'll recap this in a meeting. Well, we'll capture in minutes, but also, all this information. And by the June meeting, if possible, it would be lovely to have legal and the, proper term, developer identified.
I don't know that we necessarily I don't know that that's an appropriate role for the next meeting. I mean, I think having the working group get together and talk a little bit about process to get there is probably more.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that being aggressive, coming back with 3 or 4 for each.
I think without knowing what the property is,
I
having a developer and an attorney, I mean, I think there's a lot of conversation that needs to happen about once the property is identified, what's the right model? Do we want to own it, sell it, or I think that's the core conversation we need to have. Less so than which developer, which attorney.
So the goal could be more like developing a process.
Great. Picking between the two processes and what's our priority.
Be really hard to approach a developer if they don't know what the project is. All right.
Do we feel like this helped?
Oh,
Clarify
this
structure.
is great. Really is.
Apologize for all the trees I killed in this, but
No, shoot.
I thought it was all helpful, so hopefully.
I like that. I like baby.
It helps.
All right. Is there any other questions? 2025 tax update.
Yep, so got a call from Jess. Well, might not be quite right, a month ago, because I was checking about taxes. A month and a half ago, I was checking for organizational taxes. Her response was that they had already guessed or assumed that we would apply for an extension, that they were due in May, originally due in May. She had assumed that we might do an extension, then they would be due in November. The extension costs us nothing, and I said, I don't have a problem with you doing that. So I will work on that. Basically, all they need is a trial balance and some other little small information, so I'll get it taken care of in the next, probably by the next meeting, if not the next.
Is this still with Krugel?
So that's all that is.
Moving on to the financials.
Are you looking for a motion to approve?
Yeah.
Or for a motion to approve?
Have a
I'll
second.
second it.
Any questions? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes.
Motion to approve community foundation statement?
Motion, any questions on the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes. We have an invoice for where, ironically, where?
Motion to approve.
Have a motion, any questions? Hearing those, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion passes.
Second note, the wonderful timing after listening to the presentation from the community foundation about how much money continues to build. They haven't had negative quarters in a really long time, and all of a sudden we get hit with a negative quarter.
What happens with the stock?
Before we adjourn, is there any update on our 501 status? We heard anything yet?
We haven't heard how many months has it been. That came pretty close after I started, well, like November, October, maybe put that in.
I know it's a timely process. I just didn't know if we had any updates on that at all.
Was it even sooner on there? Well, later.
I'll say it.
See the last.
I will.
On March 18th, still waiting to be processed. I'll try to expedite. I will keep checking and keep you updated. So that was the last I heard of Denmark.
Appreciate that.
I'm scared of how long that is gonna take.
Yeah, it's the feds. It is what it is.
But just as a reminder, because we've submitted during this period, we can take tax deductible donations. However, if they come back to us, they reject it, then that's a problem. We gotta talk to all those startups. So it's kind of a catch-22. You can apply for the C3, be sure you're gonna get it, get assurances you're gonna get it, but if they pull out the rug on you.
So we don't really take donations, so.
We have not been aggressively reaching out.
Really, Mike? You haven't been asking
I haven't
anybody you
done
know?
anything. It's still, I know for sure.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
So moved?
Awesome.
Thanks. Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Trent.